All right, dear viewers and listeners, welcome back to Konsensus Network. This is AuthorCast, and we have the legendary Bitcoin philosopher Knut Svanholm here. He's wrote two magnificent books, Sovereignty Through Mathematics and Independence Reimagined. And today we're going to talk about sovereignty through mathematics. Knut, how are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm fine, thanks. Great to be here. And great to have you as you guys as collaborators on looking forward to collaborating in future endeavors. Let's say that.
Yeah, definitely. I'll just go right ahead and say that your book was probably one of the first Bitcoin books that I read, and it was also the second book after Bitcoin Standard that we translated into Finnish. I really liked it, and I think it formed a lot. I base a lot of my own thinking on sovereignty through mathematics. I really like that. It's also one of I think it's the last book that I personally worked on. So yeah, it's a very dear book to me. So I'm happy to talk about that with you.
Thanks. Great to hear that. Wow, how could that have been the first Bitcoin book you got your hands on?
Yeah, I think it was released in 2018, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Late 2018, maybe.
It might be
or 90.
It might sound weird, but I didn't read a lot before Bitcoin, and I really got into Bitcoin full time maybe in 2018. That was around the time. And 2017 for sure, I was already reading a lot and was writing some stupid shitcoin articles and whatnot. That's the path. Anyway, but it was only 2018, I think, early 2018, that summer, when I really started reading books. And I think that's when I read your book and I read Saif's book. And that's when I got completely obsessed with those, that information. And also I fell down the Austrian economics rabbit hole, Rothbard and, Mises.
Oh.
So I haven't actually read books for that long, which might be difficult to believe.
How did you stumble upon it though? Because that was before it sort of got, I wouldn't say viral, but more popular.
I don't remember. I think maybe somebody recommended it to me. Maybe Thomas, who was the lead translator. That's probably how I got my hands into it.
Yeah.
He wanted to translate it, so I had to kind of read it to see.
Yeah, the Finnish translation happened really fast. I was sort of stunned by how fast you guys were.
Thomas is a machine.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, and yeah, we have a great editor too, Laura, who is doing excellent job with. Unfortunately, she doesn't have time to participate in every single book, but all those books that you can really see the passion and the love of the language. And
yeah, all of this just reminds me that I have to get going. I have to start writing again.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, are you working on your third book? I sure hope so.
Yeah, I am, but there's not that much material yet. Since some listeners might already know, I quit my fiat job and I'm trying to do Bitcoin full time now, or Bitcoin philosophy, or whatever you may call it. And but I took the liberty of like having a month off from everything here.
Yeah, for sure.
And that month has come to its end now. So now is the time for me to like start doing stuff again. And when you don't really have to, it's you need a sort of a kick, a kick in the behind. Having Jeff Booth over for dinner here really helps with that. Like he didn't like the idea of me doing other stuff than writing. He thought I should probably focus on that. Like really do the book first and do other stuff later.
Right.
My plan is to take that advice to heart and really get going with this thing. And we'll see what happens. If I get too bored with it, I'll make another video or record an album or like make a board game or something. I don't know what, or just
when the inspiration hits, I like to when it's something that you cannot not do, like you can't stop yourself from doing it. that's when you know where to put your effort.
Exactly. But then you come to all these situations when you can't stop yourself. And right now, I'm really enjoying doing this Twitter Spaces, like just improvisational. I started Twitter Spaces every now and then, talking about this and that, and I get some great speakers on there, and get to like philosophize on a level I never thought possible, like to connect with people and start talking about this really, really deep stuff, so directly and so instantly. It's a really powerful tool, and it's hard to like focus on doing other stuff when you can get so much out of just starting a Twitter Spaces and having all these great conversations.
Yeah.
And to that is that I don't have an iPhone, so I was never in the Clubhouse trench.
Yeah, I understand. And I don't think it's going to be long for the world, because if Twitter is going to make, right now the Twitter Spaces are kind of buggy, but I think they're going to make better. And once you integrate Bitcoin tips and payments, I think it's a slam dunk. It's a really powerful tool.
It is. And it's hard to deny. And I hear Lightning that Strike is launching in Europe in 1 to 4 months.
Oh, that's something to look forward.
This is just a rumor now, but I think I have some pretty solid insider info on this.
That's cool. Well, it's time. So, it's just a matter of time. It will happen for sure. And there will be others too. It's not just...
I wonder how they'll manage to do it tax-wise, but whatever. This thing is bound to happen sooner or later, and sooner rather than later, probably. I mean, when you fall down this rabbit hole, there's no way out again. And like when people realize that there's a peaceful, friendly way to interact with other human beings, and that we can just agree on a fixed set of rules, so that we can have leaderless leadership, or rules without rulers.
Right.
When that's when you really grasp what that implies, which sooner or later everyone does, then there's just no stopping this thing, and it will change the course of humanity, probably within the next 10 years.
I agree. Yeah, like Bitcoin removes the trust that third parties, so we can again trust each other. So, like for example, I used PayPal, and I'm never going to use PayPal anymore unless if I can avoid it. But people really think that there's no options. Like PayPal took 3% fee on the transaction, and they locked up my funds for 21 days for no reason, just because they can. It's like they can give you, the banks can give you shit service and get away with it because people don't understand that there's options.
Yeah. I have a new internet provider here in Spain, and I try to make a monthly transaction from my Swedish bank account to the internet provider in Spain, but it didn't work for some reason. So
it's crazy.
People who try to send their own money from one country to another must be criminals.
Yeah,
from their point of view, and it's so ridiculous. And like the technology is, I used the Lightning Network back in 2019. It was still by far the best payment system.
Right.
So compared to the others, there's just no comparison there. You press a button and the money's there, regardless of who you are or where you are.
Instant settlement. Yeah, it's mind-boggling. We've been using since 2019 also in our shop, and now we're running our own BTC-based server, finally. So no more custodian services.
Excellent.
So should we get into the book?
Yeah, sure.
This is the book we're talking about. So Sovereignty Through Mathematics, and this is the Finnish version.
Excellent. I have that version. I can't understand a word of it.
So did you enjoy the extra touches that I put in there?
the ones about the movements and everything. Yeah, I enjoy that.
So who should buy the book? Like, who should read it? Who is it for? Why did you write it?
This book is for people that are curious about Bitcoin and what the idea of an absolutely scarce or absolutely finite asset implies philosophically and like for the future of mankind.
Right.
So it's sort of, in a way, it's the Bitcoin Standard light.
Right.
Even though it doesn't go that deep into monetary history, which the Bitcoin Standard does, but it touches on some of the same points. It has a slightly different angle, a more philosophical angle, I think, rather than an economic or praxeological one,
or technical one.
It's not a very technical book, so it requires no previous knowledge whatsoever, I think, about Bitcoin or about mathematics or about sovereignty.
So would you say that it's a good book to start with if you're curious and you want to start falling down the rabbit hole?
Yes, especially since this is my full-time profession now, I have to say that it's a good place to start, Jen.
Fair.
No, but that's more for you to say, I think, than me. I wrote it mainly because, like, my Bitcoin journey story is this. I took an online course after having been curious about this thing for quite a while. I took an online course in 2016 with Andreas Antonopoulos as one of the teachers, and I graduated that. It's like the first course of a university degree type thing, and I graduated that with the top results, and I had all this newfound knowledge, and I tried to think of a way in which I could use that knowledge, and I thought about like taking the whole master's degree course, but then again I thought, maybe why should I do that? It's better to just buy some Bitcoin and wait and do other stuff instead. So I did that, and I started writing articles about Bitcoin. And one of them got a bit of attention about how to get a hold of your own private keys during the SegWit, the Bitcoin Cash hard fork in 2017, August 2017. So then I thought, like, maybe there's something here. Maybe I could actually be a voice here and do something about it. And I enjoy writing these things. I was very bored at my job at the time, so I had a lot of spare time. So I started writing. And after having done that for a year, I compiled the articles into a book, mainly because I was interested in what the process of publishing a book is like, or was like, to self-publish. So I did that. And then that was the book I had attached to my name on the internet. So when you, and I wasn't really happy with that book since it had no like coherent theme or I felt the need to like write something more proper, a proper book, rather than just a collection of articles.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a New Year's resolution in 2018 was to write a page a day for the whole year, and then publish that, whatever came out of that. And I could keep my resolution for 106 days.
Wow!
And then I got bored with writing about the same stuff, and I thought the book was sort of done by then. So I decided to let's just publish this short book instead and see whatever comes out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I published a couple of chapters and got a lot of feedback, and it wasn't very well edited at that point. Let's just keep it at that. So I got a lot of help from a couple of other Bitcoiners, really good help to polish up the language and make it more accessible.
Right.
And the end result that came out is, I was very proud of it. So So I brought like 50 books to Riga to the Baltic Honey Badger conference, and I gave half of them away and sold half of them through different means for cash and for PayPal payments and for Lightning payments and on-chain payments. Lightning Network being the best way to get rid of the book, definitely. But and after that, it sort of took off because people seem to like it, and now it lives its own life. And I'm very happy about that. And I didn't expect that to happen. I never expected the book to be translated to begin with, or to have any type of impact.
Right.
But there's more to the story about this book, because a couple of months after that, I saw a fantastic piece of art in a little video clip from Miami on Twitter, and it was Fractal Encrypt's full node statue. If you have seen that, it's on the cover of my second book, and I saw the word sovereignty through mathematics engraved in this magnificent thing. So I DM'd, that thing. So I DM'd the artist, the anonymous artist Fractal Encrypt, and I told him, I asked him if he knew that my book had that title. What a coincidence! You put the same words as my book title on your piece. And he was, and he replied, "Are you kidding? I listened to that book while I made the thing." So I was baffled by that, of course, and so cool to have that in there. And then the story doesn't end there. It goes on from there, but me putting that, getting his permission to put that thing on the cover of the follow-up book, Independence Reimagined. And it doesn't end there either. First of all, he sold one of these things to Michael Saylor. Did you see that? So whenever Michael Saylor is on a pod, he has this magnificent piece behind him with my book title on it. Yeah. So that's surreal. And now the latest thing he did was he auctioned out another piece called the Bitcoin Infinity Key. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that. It's pretty cool.
It's sold for over $1 Bitcoin.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which is completely unbelievable to me. So sovereignty through mathematics was really what started the whole snowball thing. And I'm in the middle of this amazing personal journey, as well as like a journey where I try to put my ego in the back seat, because I know Bitcoin is humbling in a way, because like you can really experience how friendly humans can be to each other, and how what a magnificent way of cooperating we can have if we just set our egos aside and help each other.
Right.
And I've been trying to help other people, and I try to answer as many DMs as I have the time to answer, and like help people with stuff whenever I can in the space, because I'm so eternally grateful for what everyone has done for me, including, last but not least, you and your publishing house with all these translations and everything. So I'm helping out with the Swedish translation of the Bitcoin standard at the moment. I haven't done very much
helping out. But you're the editor.
Yeah. I'm the editor on paper, but I haven't done that much active stuff yet.
Now the raw translation is still ongoing, so there's not much to edit yet.
Yeah. We'll see how that ends up. I'm very curious to see the end result.
I'm really happy to have you on board. I have full faith in that project. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. And I was on Safety's pod the other week.
Yeah, actually, I listened to it.
No, excellent. So it's surreal and amazing to get to connect with all these mega brains around the world, and all the plebs with their hearts in the right place, and their dedication.
Yeah, talking about dedication,
focused.
I really, it really spoke to me. I think one of your books had in the dedication you are actually mentioning is that never come across such, hardworking, moral, helpful, kind people than Bitcoiners. And this is exactly what I say also. This is what I found. Like, I've never in my life worked with, I worked with all kinds of people, but I've never worked with people like this. And it's just I can't imagine.
It's just another level.
Yeah.
It's just another level. And whenever you meet one in real life, it's still like you're above so many social thresholds that you don't have to play this charade, this theater you do with normies. You can start at quite extreme points and start talking about the deep stuff instantly and skip everything about the weather and someone's what someone's kids or something about their school or whatever. You just get into the meaty stuff instantly. And if the thing it does, it makes me feel lazy. It makes me feel like I'm not very productive. And that in turn gives me a bit of bad conscience. And because of that, I get the kick in the ass that I need to get going with the next thing. That's a theory. That's the theory, at least.
how does that make you complacent? Because you feel too comfortable with the people that you're surrounded.
No, but I'm so impressed by everyone else in this space and the speed at which they produce quality stuff.
Oh, I see.
And like Seyfedin, for instance, who has like written 2 additional books and put up his website and is doing 4 courses simultaneously, and he has this cooperation with the Sailor Academy and everything at the same time. Like he's fighting on so many fronts, while I'm sitting here in Spain, like pondering what my next book should be about and writing maybe a page every 2 weeks. I mean,
but you should never compare yourself to others. You should just compare yourself to yourself yesterday.
No, that's very true. But when I compare myself to myself yesterday, I feel even more lazy because I used to like the funny thing about this productiveness. What I've noticed is when I had really too much to do at work, like my last fiat job was as a crew manager for an offshore wind shipping company, and that, of course, that was taking way too much time from my life. And when I had really rough, really stressful periods, I sort of relaxed by setting that aside for a while and just started writing about Bitcoin instead. Mm-hmm. So the more I had to do, the more productive I could be with my hobbies, which is sort of counterintuitive, right? You think that if you have all the time in the world on your hands, you can be like infinitely creative, but it doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. When you have too little to do, you get sort of lazy and like, you think I could do that tomorrow. But then there's another thing to be said for creativity, because you sort of need to be in a headspace where you're not focusing on being productive or not focusing on being, you need to be really relaxed and be able to play with your thoughts, in order to get the really good ideas, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we're a bit off topic.
We went on a bit of a detour there, but that's good because your books are all about the philosophy, and it's, I like these philosophical conversations a lot. But let's get back on track here. And what would you say are the correlations people can get from your book once they put the book down? What do you think is the last things on their mind?
I mean, it's been a while since I wrote it. I think that I'm very proud of the first chapter, called Everything a Trade. And we turned that into a little video as well.
Okay.
So feel free to share that video.
Yeah,
after
we'll
this.
definitely put your videos in the description here. People can
Yeah,
find it easy.
and that is a chapter I wrote way before I read any Mises or Rothbard or anything. And I'm quite proud of having come to the same conclusions as them without having read them first.
Right.
But it's about how everything we do is a trade. We trade with ourselves and our own time, and we trade with other people. So that is like, that's what the book begins. That's how the book begins. Like first laying out the foundation that everything we do is a trade. And because I think it's much easier to understand why money is such a powerful tool and so needed in society if you view everything as a trade.
Yeah.
Like this conversation we're having now is a trade. You want it for your publishing house, and I want it for my reputation or whatever. And I think we both feel that we might stumble upon an idea that we haven't had before.
Right.
During the conversation.
Yeah.
So it's worth the trade-off both with each other and with our future selves.
Yeah.
And that's why we do it. We might as well spend our time doing something else, but we choose to allocate this hour to talking to each other. And we do that because we're involved in voluntary trade with each other. We trade words and ideas with each other as we speak.
Yep.
And if you start looking at the world from that angle, it's much easier to understand why this is the civilized way of doing stuff.
Exactly.
The other option humans have for resolving conflict, and this is an idea I got from the new atheist movement mainly, I think, is that we have two ways of resolving conflict. One is speech, when we exchange information with each other, and the other is violence, when we use force to take stuff from our fellow man.
Yeah.
And if you prefer the non-violent way, there's really no option to trading, because trading is the non-violent way. And it's beneficial for everyone involved in it.
Yep. Yeah. Unfortunately, in the fiat world, we have this kind of like coercive trades also. Like you said, everything is an exchange. And, like what Mises and Rothbard writes is that a trade in a free market, free and voluntary trade, will not take place unless both parties to the trade are expecting higher return ex ante, which means that for the trade, they have a positive outlook for the trade, and then ex post, which means after the trade, you may change your mind and you may find that the trade was actually now worth it. And then later you will remember that, but that's only afterwards. So all the trade that happens in voluntary world must be approved by both parties, which is sadly not the case in a lot of exchanges in the fiat world.
Yeah, in all trades in the fiat world are somewhat diluted by the price signals and everything being distorted by interventionism.
Yep.
And involuntary stuff like taxes and inflation and all the rest, all of the interventionism in markets. And we should also remember that a trade that didn't go as well as you thought it would, so that you expected it to be more beneficial to you than it actually was, like a kid buying a new toy and the toy turned out to be boring after 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That is not without value. Failing is very valuable because it teaches you to make better decisions in the future. And it's the only mechanism we have to error correct is if errors have a cost to them, then we get some value out of them. Because if they have a cost to them, we learn something from our mistakes and we are less likely to make the same mistake again.
Yep.
And this is why I think bailouts, regardless of if it's bank bailouts or bailouts of people living off social security or whatever, is always bad in the long run, because people will not learn their lesson and they won't change their behavior. So they will keep on acting in harmful ways, harmful to themselves first and foremost, but harmful to society also. So we must remember that in a free market society, either both parties benefit, or one party benefits and the other party learns a lesson, or both parties learn a lesson. But there's never a net negative from a trade in that sense.
Yeah, very true. It's like the pain signal mechanism. Like if a toddler burns their hand on a hot plate, it gives you right away a signal that don't do that. It's a very bad idea, and it gives you a feedback. But like these bank bailouts, there's no pain, so they can just keep destroying themselves with no consequences, and it's going to reflect very badly for the whole world.
Yeah. And like, if you're getting paid every month for behaving destructively, like sitting on your bum and doing nothing and smoking weed all day, playing PlayStation and not being productive, if you never get punished for that, you're more likely to keep on doing it.
Yep.
So it's so what you're effectively doing when you give out money to people that haven't earned that money is, it's the same thing as giving them a payment for putting their hand into a toaster every month.
Exactly.
So it's they will keep on being destructive to themselves. The continuation of that, which is the rest of society.
Yeah, and it's a vicious cycle too, because then there's cognitive dissonance. Like we don't like blaming ourselves. We don't like necessarily, at least a lot of people don't like taking the personal responsibility and looking in the mirror and saying, look, you done goofed and this is your fault and you gotta pull yourself together. You would rather believe that it's, it's those greedy Bitcoiners, they did this to the economy. I think this is going to be a popular narrative, even though it's completely irrational. However, truth has never been on the, high on the market rather than comforting lies. This has been true throughout human history, I think. Who will always go for the comforting lies rather than the ugly truth.
Yeah, but Bitcoin is flipping that as we speak.
Yeah,
it's making truth it's advertising for truth every day.
Yeah, it's going to make truth sexy and saving sexy, but it's going to piss off a lot of people. Like before you see the light, before you see the truth, it's going to piss you off. I think somebody said.
Yeah, I think so. And of course, bailouts are even worse when it's politicians and people in big institutions and banks and stuff that get these parachute deals and when there's no consequences to being a bad leader, you will have bad decisions. It's inevitable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like, company CEO constantly making bad decisions and getting bailed out by, government subsidies. Essentially, I think there's a lot of zombie companies like this who operate basically they are in the pocket of the government subsidies. The same as the people, really. Like, it's so ironic that they have these signs in the parks that, or in the zoo, rather, to not to, feed the animals, to make them dependent. And that is exactly what we do in so-called welfare countries, which I don't think we're faring that well.
No, that's a very good analogy. Like, you shouldn't, the first animal you shouldn't feed is the human being, because it's capable of feeding itself.
Exactly.
It's just, but some people think we aren't capable of feeding ourselves, but that's because of everything getting stolen from us on a daily basis. Inflation is everywhere, and the only source for inflation is money printing. Like, the more money there is in circulation, the more debt there is in circulation, and the more inflation there is. So and by the way, being stolen, if you have your stuff stolen from you, you lower your time preference gets higher, because if everything you own is stolen from you, your priority becomes, how do I feed myself?
Mm-hmm.
Where do I get shelter? Where can I seek shelter and survive? And where do I find food? And the more capital you have, the more you can afford to think ahead and have a lower time preference.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get if a highway robber steals stuff from you, your time preference increases temporarily, because you will take measures. You learn from that mistake, and you maybe you spend some money on personal security, or take a jujutsu class or whatever. But you try to make sure that won't happen to you again.
Mm-hmm.
But the same thing is true for taxes and inflation, which happens to you all the time. Your time preference is inevitably heightened. So you make more and more short-term decisions the more money they take from you, and your capability of long-term thinking diminishes. And the only thing that can put an end to that today is Bitcoin, because it's the only thing that is guaranteed to keep its value over time, or at least keep its being this part of the 21 million over time. So, it's an amazing idea.
Yeah, that's the crux. Like, I remember the time when I was still assimilating in the fiat clown world, which is most of my life, and I didn't know why everything was shit. I didn't understand why I had high time preference and why it was destructive. I just thought, this is the life. This is how everybody else is living. And then it was only after discovering Bitcoin and really learning about it that I realized. And then once you see it, it's like unplugging from Matrix. You cannot unsee it. You cannot eradicate the idea from your brain once it's taken root. And I think this is the crux, that if more people can understand that not just the nuts and bolts and technicalities of Bitcoin, but what it implies for humanity and human development.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why we are eager to spread the message, because we want to help other people, and Bitcoin will help them in the same way it helped us. It helps us not only by securing us financially, but it helps us lower our time preference and be more wise.
Mm-hmm.
Make wise decisions that last longer.
Yeah, and not be wasteful.
And that's the only way we can save the planet if there's a climate problem.
Yeah.
Not taking any stance here. I'm just saying that if we want to solve a problem, we need to solve the problem long term. We can't fix a cancer with a Band-Aid. You can't cure cancer with a Band-Aid, which is what politicians try to do all the time. They try to they see the problem and they try to fix it by putting a Band-Aid on it, and it won't work, because it's not a scratch on the surface. It's a cancer growing underneath the surface. So and that's what we need to fix.
Yeah. Let's dig into that a little bit, because there's a concept called financial atheism in the book, and I feel like people have always wanted to pay the high priests some kind of fee to get into the heaven. So essentially, this is what we have now. We have state religion, right? And the state dictates what we need to do. Like, okay, we need to fix the weather, so give us some money, we'll fix the weather. People are eager to believe that, because that's the easy way out. Okay, we just give someone, I don't have to think about that. So I think it's religion has played a big role in human history, and now it's no different. It's just that we call it the science, or, statism, or whatever you want to call it.
I think my views have changed on this subject somewhat, but I still want to push this message, because I believe there are many Bitcoiners that find a new meaning in it, and they attach religious ideas to it. And I think there's a danger to that many people miss. I view statism as another religion, and nowadays I view it as probably the worst one yet. And this is because, I've done some more work on the subject after I wrote that chapter in the book, and that is mainly a video called "The Separation of Church and State," which was an article for Bitcoin Magazine I wrote a couple of months back. And the idea is that the central banks have taken over from the churches, and the people that in the past promised you a better life in the afterlife are not there anymore. But there are other forces promising you a better life here and now if you act in a certain way. And that's even more dangerous in a way, because it leads to even more short-term decisions. And as I write in that chapter, every time a civilization invents ceremonial burial, they expand. And why is this? It's because ceremonial burial is always attached to the idea of an afterlife. And when you can fool people that there's an afterlife, you can make them do atrocious things to each other, like kill this neighboring tribe and you will get to heaven. If you don't, you'll go to hell. Mm-hmm. So I believe the very idea of worshiping a higher power is at the roots of many of our problems. It's that idea of something being omnipotent or something better happening if we act in a certain way, which is not attached to reality necessarily. So that thought in itself is a dangerous thought, because that is the thought that enables all of these psychopaths to rule over us. Mm-hmm. I mean, from natural law and first principles, we own our own bodies and our own stuff, and no one else should be able to decide what we do with it. It's not moral in any sense of the word. But as soon as we believe that there's a higher power in a god or a king or a president or whatever, then we're willing to do all sorts of atrocities to each other. And I believe it's a very bad thing. And another theme to tie into the financial atheism, like as I laid out in the book, it's like atheism to me is not a 100% belief in the idea that there is no God. It's just a lack of belief in gods. So it's not a belief in itself. It's the lack of belief. It's the lack of belief in things which aren't verifiable. Mm. So financial atheism is the lack of belief in value systems that aren't verifiable, or like scarcity claims that aren't verifiable. So when a central bank says that use this currency, this krona or this whatever euro or Finnish mark, whatever fiat currency they conjure up, they say this has value because we say it has value. But there's no telling how many there are in circulation. It's a claim. It's an ungrounded claim. It's like a religious claim. They claim that this is powerful and you should believe it, and that's what makes it powerful, sort of.
Right.
But to me, Bitcoin is the opposite of that. It's when you can verify every step of the process. So there's no belief in no supernatural force necessary. All you need to do is study game theory, praxeology, and mathematics, and you can understand every step. You can understand Bitcoin every step of the way. At least how it functions technically. There's no mystery there. It's based on fact. Yeah. And the axioms it derives its foundation from is solid, are solid. And another angle I thought of the other month here is that the scarcity. Two things in the world are absolutely scarce: your lifetime and your Bitcoin.
Yeah,
they're absolutely scarce. So there's a perfect match there. If you don't believe in an afterlife, if you believe that the time you have on this earth is the only thing you'll ever get, and you believe that the Bitcoins that exist on this earth are the only Bitcoins you're ever going to get, then that's a perfect match. You can trade one for the other. That they represent the same thing. They are time in that sense. They're human time. A Bitcoin is time.
Yeah, I would add to that I think the same. Our time obviously is the most scarce and most valuable subjectively, but Bitcoin is objectively, if there's such a thing, it's objectively scarce, objectively absolutely scarce, whereas time is only subjectively scarce to us. Obviously, it matters the most to us, and that's why people are willing to trade Bitcoin for time. Potentially.
You can view it like this: like economics applies only to scarce resources. If something is abundant, there's no trade is necessary. Like air, for instance, is everywhere, so we don't charge a price for it. Or we can't force anyone else to pay for it because it's free and it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Air in a scuba tank underwater is not abundant, and therefore a flask of oxygen for a scuba diver has a price. Now, where am I going with this? So stuff can be scarce from a subjective perspective, but time, if we had unlimited time, if we had an infinite amount of time and we knew that we were indestructible, we would never die and we would live forever, there would be no point in producing stuff or trading stuff or whatever, because we wouldn't need to act if we had an unlimited amount of time. If we didn't need to act to survive,
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if time wasn't scarce, there would be no need to do anything ever. And arguably people would be vegetables if we had an unlimited amount of time, because there would be no need for you to act at all. You might as well just wait until tomorrow or until 100 years from now or a billion years. Doesn't matter, because time, if you have an infinite amount of time, that takes away the motive, that takes away the value from everything.
Yeah.
Because you might as well wait till tomorrow. And since it isn't unlimited, it's very limited. Your days are counted. The clock started ticking when you were born, and it's ticking fast. That makes life precious and valuable. And it enables you to attach meaning to life. And you get to decide what that meaning is. And if you choose to outsource that meaning to a priest or a central banker or a politician, well, good for you. You missed your chance. This was not the rehearsal. This was the show. You missed it.
Yeah.
You have one shot. Life is not a rehearsal. It's the real deal. So either you do it now or forever be silent. I mean, that's it. You need the value of a scarce amount of time in order to live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I fully agree. And, the tragedy is that most people, the regular people, normies, a lot of them practically die at 25 and then they are buried at 85 maybe. And that's the tragedy of, wasted human potential. Like, I really like the book by Julian Simon, The Ultimate Resource, which nicely outlines.
Yeah. I haven't read that yet, but I need to read that.
Definitely. It's a great book.
Yeah.
I love it.
Way before Bitcoin, I saw the movie Papillon with Steve McQueen and Dustin Hoffman. Have you seen that?
Yeah. That's a great movie.
When they're imprisoned on the Salvation Islands in outside of French Guiana in South America.
Mm-hmm.
It had a great impact. We sailed there later on with the tall ships. I visited those islands and I've seen the prison. And in the middle of the film, when he's been in prison for like 15 years or something, he has a dream, a fever dream about crawling through a desert. And in the middle of the desert, there's a grand jury. And he faces the jury and said, come on, let me go. You know that I'm innocent. I didn't do this crime that I'm imprisoned for. Yes, but this was not the crime. says the judge. So what am I accused of? Says Steve McQueen, if I remember this correctly. And then he stares him deep into the eyes, and he says, "You're accused of a wasted life." And he bangs his little hammer. And that scene had such an impact on me. Like, you're accused of a wasted life. Like, that's like the worst thing you can be accused of.
Mm.
If you had one shot and you didn't take it, you wasted it. You played PlayStation. Like,
I'm getting,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's chill in my spine right now just thinking about that. That's the final judgment on your deathbed.
Yeah, yes. But by this I mean it's not about not playing PlayStation. And maybe that's a bad analogy, because you have one life. You decide if you want to be a big shot and a big philosopher, or a big businessman, or a successful entrepreneur, or a great guitarist, or whatever you want to be. A great golfer, for all I know. But you can also choose to be a slacker all your life that just cherishes the little moments and lives day by day, and by the philosophy that you might get hit by a bus tomorrow, so you might as well enjoy it while you're here. And what I'm advocating for is make the conscious decision. Mm-hmm. You decide. Don't let anyone else decide that. Decide for yourself. What do you want to do with your days?
Yeah.
Do you want to spend them playing PlayStation? Yeah, good for you. Go ahead, play PlayStation. But don't blame anyone else for the choice you made. You made that choice. The only thing standing in your way is your ego, trying to blame others.
Yeah.
You're the one making the choice at every single point of your life.
Mm-hmm. Everything you ever did, everything that ever happened to you is your fault. That's the truth that most people refuse to face. I think most people are looking for a freedom of responsibility, not the freedom in itself, because that freedom entails full responsibility of your actions.
Yeah. The responsibility is the opposite side of the freedom coin. You can't have one without the other. You can't have responsibility without freedom, and you can't have freedom without responsibility. So that's what we have to face. I mean, everyone can have bad luck and get into an accident and have all their relatives killed in another accident, and all sorts of tragic things can happen to them that mess with their psyches. But during those moments when you don't have anything even remotely like that happen to you, and when you really just have time to waste, make the decision yourself. I mean, I had the thought the other day that time is for you to kill. You are the hunter on the prowl for time, and it's for you. It's your job to shoot time and kill it in any way you want to. And if you don't kill your time, someone will come along and waste it, and then you'll have no time to kill. Yeah, because it's stolen, it's wasted.
Yeah.
So either you kill it or someone else wastes it.
That's very well.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does really.
And you may kill it in any way you want. You can kill it by putting a bullet into its head, and basically smoke crystal meth for the rest of your days. Up to you. You can also kill it by being a cat and playing around with it. Play around with your time. Watch what happens if you play until you're 80 years old and then kill it.
Yeah.
It's like, time is for you to kill, not for anyone else to kill.
Right.
Reclaim the driver's seat. Wow, this talk is not about the book at all. Is it?
No, I think it might be. Yeah. If we take a little bit, couple steps back, we were talking about animals and not getting them dependent on handouts, basically.
Yeah.
Now, in your book, you talk about something alluding to a digital animal that, maybe Bitcoin is its own organism or something like that. I really like that idea.
That's
There's
it.
a lot of similar.
Yeah, I like it too.
Yeah. So maybe dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. First of all, many others that have
written about this as well, and more thoroughly than I have. What I basically did with that chapter is like look up first of all, there's no real coherent definition of what life is. There are more or less popular definitions of the word life. What constitutes a life form? There's no like rule book for what that implies. But if you look up the most common definitions of life, you can very easily draw parallels from that to how Bitcoin functions. So in a way, you can look at Bitcoin as a new life form. And I lay that out in the book. But since then, I have had even more thoughts about this. And the latest one is that if you, for instance, remember your seed phrase, and you destroy all other places that the seed phrase is written on, and like you destroy your private key and you keep it only in your head. If you die with that key in your head, those Bitcoins are gone forever and taken off the market. So, in other words, you are your Bitcoin. You are in a symbiotic relationship with this other life form. It thrives by you attaching value to it subjectively with your brain, and you thrive by utilizing whatever it gives you, the superpowers it gives you, that you can disregard politics and walk across any state line with any amount in your head. You can share it with others, or parts of it without being censored. You can do all sorts of stuff with it, which you couldn't do without it. So, so the thing here is that you're in a symbiotic relationship with your Bitcoin. And I had a chat earlier today. I don't know if you were there in a Twitter Spaces.
No, I wasn't.
With Max Hildebrand was there, and we had a discussion about if dead people can hodl. And like his thesis is like, if you hodl and you die, the value of those Bitcoins don't really go to the rest of the network directly, because implied in the fact that you were hodling them is the all you're doing as a conscious, if you're a conscious actor hodling, is that you're delaying your gratification, and you will spend your Bitcoin at a later point. The Bitcoins themselves don't have any value attached to them except for the expectation of, spending them later on. But then if you die with them, my counter argument to that is like, when you die with them, the value of those Bitcoin gets distributed evenly across all other Bitcoins. So you everyone else benefits. And I'm leaning towards the idea that the increased value, all the other Bitcoins make all these people ever so slightly more incentivized to spend their Bitcoin at some point in time, making the total sum of action and investment coming out of those Bitcoin the same as it was when the hodler was still alive. But then you come to the really deep rabbit hole, and if you take the thesis of Bitcoin being in a symbiotic relationship with the life form of a human being, when you have them in your head, imagine, for instance, then Hal Finney, who was the first recipient of a Bitcoin transaction. Satoshi Nakamoto first sent Bitcoins to Hal. So imagine now that Hal has some of those Bitcoins left. I don't believe seed phrases was a thing back then, but he could have remembered, theoretically at least, he could have remembered his private key. So imagine he remembered his private key, stored it in his head. And then when he died, as you probably know, his head is cryogenically frozen.
Yeah.
Because he wants to resurrect his mind at some point in the future. What if in 400 years, we find a way to resurrect Hal Finney? We unfreeze his head in a microwave oven or whatever, and he comes back to life with like a spider-shaped robotic body, and he remembers his private key.
so he can actually use those Bitcoins that he hodled for those 400 years. Then he can be dead and hodl at the same time.
Yeah.
How do you like that?
I like it. I've been thinking about that a lot. And, I like, as you know, I also like to play devil's advocate on Twitter and talk about all these kind of spiritual things and consciousness mostly. So, we don't have any indication that this is the case, but we also don't know what happens after death. Maybe we just return to the stream or whatever. And do we still have our memories? Do we still have our experiences? Do we still have those seed phrases?
Yeah.
So in that sense, I guess dead men can hodl. At least I've been saying that. And I think I wrote about that also in my article, Wielding Bitcoin. It's not immensely.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Oh, thanks. It's not immensely useful, in my opinion, to simply just hodl, because it's not very impressive. I mean, of course, congratulations, you're early and you get a piece of the absolutely scarce monetary value communication network. That's great. However, in my mind, I think Bitcoiners should be a little bit more ambitious. You got into it for a reason. So wield it, make it count, build something.
Yeah.
That is worth it to take the Bitcoin with you.
Even if that thing is like setting up a time lock so that parts of your Bitcoin will get inherited by your children and your grandchildren and your great grandchildren. I mean, you could time lock half of your Bitcoin for every halving, so that half of it gets unlocked before each halving. And if you live under the assumption that they will double in price every 4 years, then each generation gets the exact same amount of purchasing power. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, if you have the time lock, like doing halvings by itself for your children and grandchildren, you could easily see a never-ending pension plan for every forthcoming generation.
Yeah, it's generational wealth.
So that way you could hodl and wheel at the same time, because you're doing something very, very cool with it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example. There's so many ways to actually wield Bitcoin. That's I'm actually writing a book about it with another Bitcoiner, and it's going to be more like a guidebook for the Bitcoiners, the remnant. Not really. It's for somebody who is already hodling, who already got in.
All right.
And I'm really into learning more about it myself, and putting the information out there. That is, in my mind, it's not simply enough that we hodl. We need to act in order to manifest the world that we all want to live in, where we want our children, our grandchildren to live in. That's the responsibility we have.
Yeah. Yeah. Hodling is using in a way, but it's also not using. Like, we need to make investments, and Bitcoin is not an investment. It's something else.
No.
It has the potential for giving you a lot in return in the future, but it still doesn't really count as a productive investment to further mankind or even yourself. I mean,
no. I mean, in a way,
it's capital accumulation.
Like, you can make a case that hodlers work for wielders, right? I mean, they provide. They provide hodlers of last resort, right? I mean, they will buy every single Bitcoin that you have for sale. So they do provide a certain kind of service. However, alone, they don't do much.
Yeah, and here we come into the fear of Bitcoin being hoarded by the hodlers. And I think that cannot be the case, because there will always be someone willing to sell their Bitcoins. Because if you have only hodlers, the price will go up to be infinitely high, theoretically. And in that case, people will demand to be paid in Bitcoin, and you get the velocity out of necessity that way, because there will be no other way to pay people than using Bitcoin. So sooner or later, we won't be able to sustain a population of only hodlers of last resort.
No,
that won't happen.
Yeah, I don't think there's any worry about that. My intention is more like to wake people up that don't get complacent with your hodl stack. I mean, it's cool if you want to save and stuff, but it's even cooler if you can build something. So I have high respect for all the builders in the scene.
Yeah. Having said that, like, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to use your Bitcoin, but you could use your time for something productive, which is basically the same thing.
It's the same thing, right?
So,
Bitcoin is time.
yeah.
I mean, Bitcoin is what enables each and every one of us to own our time and do whatever we want with it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't
and
imply
even if it
spending Bitcoin necessarily.
No. And even if it doesn't like even function as a financial airbag, or whatever you may call it yet for you, it could still function as a destroyer of mental barriers to make you, to force you to kick yourself in the butt and actually do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that is what it has done for both me and you. Like we haven't necessarily spent that many Bitcoins ever. We hodled them and we started building something without using our Bitcoins first and foremost. We started building something like you can write a book and you can translate a book without using a single Bitcoin, but you can't do it without sacrificing time. And if time is Bitcoin, you are spending those Bitcoin. Whoa.
Yeah,
Circular argument here, but yeah.
It is true because it is an opportunity cost, right? I mean,
yeah.
I could use my time to get a fiat job so I can stack more. And a lot of people do.
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I choose to use my time to build something that is going to survive the collapse and is going to thrive in the Bitcoin standard. That's my personal goal. We'll see if the entrepreneurial risk and the opportunity cost pays off in the long run, which I believe it will.
Yeah. Excellent.
All right. Maybe we can wrap up here. And I wanted to one more thing about the digital animal thing and the homeostasis. So, how in your mind, how do you see the homeostasis? Kind of like, this is kind of like the Nash equilibrium, right? In Bitcoin. How does that work?
Oh, that's a hard question. How do I put it in the book? I don't remember.
I don't remember. To be honest, it's a while since I read it, but it's like self-sustaining. It's a game that everybody, there's some players that this is how I wrote it out. That's one of my articles in Finnish. That, there's a bunch of players, there's miners and there's users, there's hodlers, there's builders, there's developers, all these players, and also adversarial players, obviously, the central bankers, the regulators, the states. So there's kind of like this Mexican standoff in a way.
Exactly.
That nobody wants to make a wrong move because it works and people benefit from it. And if somebody's going to attack it or make a wrong move, they get eliminated from the game and it keeps going on. And this kind of like made me think, your book made me think that, does Bitcoin actually even need humans, or is it just like, can it survive in this kind of like will it take care of itself, like regulate itself without or with humans? Just, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it will regulate itself, but Bitcoin is made up of humans. There's nothing else there. It's just humans communicating. The entire network is human beings communicating. We're using tools to get better at the math required to find the hash that the difficulty adjustment has us all searching for to find the price at the end of the rainbow. But it's still just communication. It's still just mathematics and code, and that's just speech. It's nothing else. It's just human action, basically. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. And human speech, human peaceful cooperation. And while I like the Mexican standoff analogy, I like it because the picture I get in my head is, of course, from Reservoir Dogs, when the last scene of Reservoir Dogs, when everyone's. But the thing is that scene ends with everyone shooting each other and everyone dies.
Right.
Sort of. Well, there's one survivor and he arguably dies anyway. So there's like in a Mexican standoff, there's there's a downside where there's a risk involved where it all crumbles. And I think Bitcoin is much more anti-fragile than that. So say it's a Mexican standoff where everyone benefits from
not shooting each other.
A Mexican piñata standoff. So everyone benefits for that. Like, imagine a piñata that keeps on delivering candy to everyone so everyone is incentivized to give the piñata a hit every now and then. The thing is that the Bitcoin system gets more anti-fragile the more time that passes. A Mexican standoff is the opposite of that. It gets more risky the more time that passes.
Yeah, that's true.
So imagine a Mexican standoff in a universe where time runs backwards. This is getting stupid,
wild.
But,
cool. I need to think about that.
Yeah, but you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
you're right. You're right.
The time factor is wrong in the Mexican standoff analogy,
because the time is always on Bitcoin's side. And that was kind of like my point also, that maybe, in the Mexican standoff, the humans shoot each other, and then there's a machine race. There's an AI who can still use Bitcoin. Bitcoin is time, and it exists, and it's just numbers. It has been existing. It was, I think you alluded to this in your second book, it was a discovery rather than an invention, right?
Yeah. And I think that, I'm onto that in the first book as well, but I flesh it out more in the second, but I think this is the most important insight, because if you don't view it as a discovery, but as an invention, regardless of all the discussions about semantics surrounding this, people call me stupid all the time for saying it's a discovery rather than an invention. But if you view it as a discovery, you've made yourself a shortcut to understanding its implications.
Right.
But we need to treat it as a discovery in order for it to work. In a way. Well, we don't need to do anything. It will work anyway because the game theoretical blah, blah, blah. It's not that fragile.
Right.
That's the point. But the more we realize about it, the more I think we come to the inevitable conclusion that it was a discovery. Because why, like a wheel is arguably not a discovery, but an invention. But the circular shape, a circle, that's a discovery, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's about the same thing with Bitcoin. The absolute scarcity part is the discovery, and the resistance to replicability, the solution to the double spending problem. That's the discovery. And we build code around that, and we design software around that and hardware around that. Those are inventions. They're not discoveries.
Mm-hmm.
They're inventions taking advantage of this discovery of how we can interact in a fair way, how we can express value to each other in a fair set under a specific set of rules that we all agree on. And that's the discovery, the rule set, the way to interact with each other that leads to all of these other wonderful things. That's the discovery. The discovery is not Bitcoin. There's no such thing as a Bitcoin. It's non-existent. It's an abstract concept. It is a discovery. It's only math. It lives in an abstract realm. It cannot be an invention because it's not physical until you utilize the discovery to invent stuff around it. Does that make any sense?
It does. I think in a way, what Satoshi did is come up with the parameters and maybe invent the window through which we could discover Bitcoin. Because I don't think necessarily Satoshi understood what he had discovered yet. He had the idea of where to look for the window, right? And build the window.
Yeah.
And only now, after a certain amount of time has passed, we start to see the discovery. More and more of us are waking up and looking through the window and discovering Bitcoin. And I think, what you said, that wheel is an invention and the circular shape is the discovery. I think that's really that's really hitting the nail in the head.
Yeah. I agree with all you said, because like then again, we can't know what Satoshi thought about this thing. No one really knows, regardless of what he wrote and didn't write, and when he wrote it. But we cannot know the inner workings of his mind. We cannot know how much of a 4D chess player he was. We don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
We know that he's a genius. We don't know at what level of genius. A genius could be a 4D chess player genius as well. We don't know how, or he was just genius enough to put these things together, and luckily we stumbled on greatness afterwards.
And the beautiful thing is, it doesn't really matter, all honor to
Not in the
Satoshi
least.
for his inventions and coming up with this framework of discovery that enabled us to find the numbers that we call Bitcoins.
Yeah.
But yeah, like right now, it starts to be a living organism of its own that lives its own life, and it's more like it's recruiting humans and maybe even some other races too into the game, because it can pay the players for playing. So the game just keeps going on as long as Bitcoin keeps paying the players in one way or another.
I tweeted something the other day about a part of me wanting if Satoshi came back, that he was a Satanist. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that.
Just in order to get more people to question their worldviews. But I'd like to flesh that out a bit more. Let's say Satoshi comes back and it turns out that he's a team of 16-year-old lesbian environmentalist social justice warrior women that are like Satanist in the Muslim sense of the word, or something completely the opposite of who people thinks that this entity is.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
Just to have some worldviews shattered by, and because the beauty of this thing, it's that it doesn't matter who invented. Like Pythagoras' theorem works without Pythagoras.
Mm-hmm.
Pythagoras might have been an asshole, who cares?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
His contribution to mankind is important regardless of that.
Yes, exactly.
And so I'd like if Satoshi turns out to be a bunch of statists or whatever, like some adversarial character to all the mainstream, add vegan in there, like a vegan Satanist group of lesbian 16-year-old environmentalist women identifying as something else,
right? And socialist, of course.
So I couldn't have been a socialist. That does not work in my world.
No, but it's interesting.
Could have been all these other things.
It's interesting,
but not
like
socialist.
it's not. Maybe it's not that far fetched that maybe Satoshi was a socialist, because I don't remember if Satoshi even talked about that himself. That if we explain Bitcoin correctly, it should appear to the Marxist view, something to that effect. And Bitcoin is the great equalizer. And let's pretend for a second that socialism is about equality, which is not. It's equal outcomes don't exist, and that it will destroy the realm of men. We all know that. But what Bitcoin provides is the level playing field, equal opportunity, which is fair, the fair starting point for a free economy, a free market economy, from where we start to build.
Yeah, and it's socialistic in the sense that it requires everyone in the network to agree on the rules.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it has made maybe not socialist is never the correct word for anything good in society. But say it as a syndicalistic society or something like that.
Yeah.
Anarcho-syndicalistic.
Yeah, I like the word syndicate. I like to talk about Star Wars organizations, and I think
Yeah.
in terms of the anti-fragility and decentralization, basically. So, what Bitcoin is DAO, basically, decentralized autonomous organization or organism.
Here we come into, this is a funny territory to get into as well. I hate the word decentralization.
Yeah, I know.
But because it's so misinterpreted. I talked about this a lot before, but the main thesis here is that decentralization is unfortunately the means to a greater end. That greater end being resistance to replicability, and therefore absolute scarcity in an asset.
And censorship resistance.
And censorship resistance. Yeah. That all of those. But if we could have achieved that by some other means, that would have been preferable, because decentralization is the only thing it is. It's expensive, and you get a lot of people disagreeing about a lot of stuff, and it's not very pleasant with decentralization. And organizations should not be decentralized. That's a fallacy in itself. I think communists believe that the organizations should be decentralized because, the workers control of factories and all of this. Never works, because no one is putting up the capital. No one has anything to lose. There's no skin in the game. And without skin in the game, there's no progress. People don't learn from their mistakes and so on. So you tie it back to all of these thoughts. It all boils down to human action, why we do things, and why property is the most important thing, and how we build capital, and we put our lives on the line in order to get greater rewards. And no one would do that if things were decentralized. So that's, in a nutshell, why I don't like the word decentralized.
No, that's a reasonable position. Why I like to talk about this, because I call Konsensus Network a starfish organization, which of course it has a central point of failure. It has me as the CEO as of now. Perhaps one day we can change that. However, the point is more like distribution of certain responsibilities that come with entrepreneurship, right? Equity and work. And, the way we work is basically the company itself is just me, but we have like more than 50 people working on the projects. So the projects themselves are kind of like these small starfish that are, they don't necessarily need me. The work is theirs. They have done the work. They have all the files. So if something happened to me or the company, those work would still be there. So in that way, of course, there's elements of centralization, because we're still living in the fiat clown world where you do need some kind of a spider organization to make it look good and to be able to deal with other fiat companies. But I think this is something that we're moving away from in the fiat, in the Bitcoin stand.
I wouldn't call that decentralized. I would call that just cooperation.
Yeah. Well, I don't call it decentralized either. I call it a starfish organization.
Yeah. That's a better term. It's just people cooperating with each other, basically.
Yeah. Just
and
like
engaging in free trade.
Yep.
But that means there is a hierarchy. At every level in that organization, there's a hierarchy. There are people making trade-offs with themselves and with others all the time. Shall I focus on editing chapter 5 here, or should I focus on writing my own book? And I need to make the trade-off all the time. There's always a value hierarchy in all the minds of all the people in this organization.
Right.
So they're looking at it as a topography of some sort instead of a flatline decentralized thing. There's you can't escape the value hierarchies because they're in each and every one of our minds. We all have them inside us.
Of course.
It's nothing.
I don't think decentralization implies not having hierarchies. I think hierarchies are obvious.
Then what is it?
Yeah, that's a good question. What is decentralization?
I would say distributed is a better word in that sense, because decentralized means there's no center point. And that's like, well, who makes the decisions then?
Right.
There needs to be a final decision maker. It doesn't happen by itself. It can't.
But there isn't one in Bitcoin.
No, but in Konsensus Network, there's a final decision maker.
Yeah, for sure. I don't want the, at least for now, like look, it's good to have goals, right? I don't know if it's ever going to be successful. It's very immensely difficult to launch anything decentralized. Like what Satoshi did is, I think it's maybe a one-time thing, but that doesn't take any, I think there's a lot of value in taking a lot of elements from that. And sure, nothing is perfect. What I'm merely saying is that we can be way more anti-fragile. We can be way more free, and we can use, specialization and cooperation in much more efficient ways, not necessarily in a fast way, like a spider organization where it's very easy when there's a chain of command.
But okay,
as a captain,
I need to reply for this.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, because what you're describing is a functioning free market. It's not. We're so used to these large corporations with some big fat boss on top that decides for everyone, and like the workers on the floor of McDonald's being paid way too little and working in a very stressful environment, and then there's some suits on the top making all the money. But these are how organizations in the fiat clown world. In a free market economy, what you're describing is what happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's voluntary interaction through free trade in every step of the way. And it's not decentralized, it's hierarchical, but in a much fairer way. Like you still have the power to say no to everything. Either a contract is broken or it's not broken. It's like on a much more primal level, if you will, or like a much more basic level of how capitalism is supposed to work. Because we can do that in Bitcoin because there's no interventionism there.
Mm-hmm.
There's no one to stop us from cooperating with each other.
Yeah.
And this is what you get. You get a sweet community of sweet people voluntarily interacting with each other to help the greater cause. And it's so beautiful to see it play out because there's no workers' control of factories or decentralization or whatever you may call it at play here. It's the organic distributing of the organic distribution of talent because of the free markets mechanics of the free market. So that's why I say I detest the word decentralization, because the only use case I see for each and every node having the exact same voting power, if you will, is to ensure that the double spending problem is solved and that you don't have, and that you in turn have this resistance to replicability and censorship resistance and all of these things that make Bitcoin beautiful. That's the only use case.
Yeah, it's true.
The other thing that people are talking about is just a functioning free market. And that's a meritocracy. And it's like everyone focusing on what they do best. And you have Ricardo's law at play and the utilizing the full potential of the division of labor. That's what it is.
Yeah, I agree.
Not decentralization.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Too many words, too little time.
Certainly. Well, I've enjoyed our talk immensely, and it was the first one, by the way, of the author cast that we made. So it's kind of an experimental format. What do you think about it?
Yeah, the more time that passes since I wrote the book, the less I know about the book, and the less I can identify with the ideas in the book.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because unless the same thing happens for all the music I made in the past and everything. I mean, every cell in your brain is like renewed at some point. You have an entirely new brain after 25 years or something. Every single cell is replaced by a new cell. So you can say that you're a different organism. It's kind of like, the analogy of the ship just having one plank left from the original and all the rest is. Yeah. So it's hard for me to talk about the book without like segueing into what I'm thinking now about these subjects, because I try not to get like boxed in by whatever I've done before, but being able to question everything I've written before.
You have a beautiful mind. So it's always a pleasure to listen to you talk and read your writings as well.
Thank you. And I really enjoyed this talk because, really gave me a platform to flesh out some of these more recent ideas.
That's excellent. And that was also
and
part of the-
I love it.
Cool.
Yeah, and I'd love to do some more of these because that I'm learning as much as you do while doing these things myself, because it forces me to think harder about things.
Well, let's definitely do another one for a second book, and then once you get your third book on the way, we can maybe talk about that as well.
Yeah, and I'm going to need a lot of help with that, with distributing it and translating it and editing it and everything. And when the time comes, I think we should put together a little team and do something with it.
For sure. So
looking forward to that very much.
Me too. Any closing remarks, and tell everybody where they can find you, where they can read your writings?
Well, you can find translations of my writings on the Konsensus Network at their website, which is www.consensusnetwork.com, right?
No, it's consensus.network, actually.
Yeah, consensus.network. Yeah. Remember that wrong. But it's all there in Finnish and German still, I believe, right?
German is not by us. It's the Apricot Media.
No, it's Apricot Media. So I thought they were in the same places. Oh, okay. I don't know anything.
I suppose.
But anyway, you find a lot of other Bitcoin books there as well. So make sure to check them out. My stuff is mainly on Twitter. That's my main Bitcoin channel, at Knut Svanholm on Twitter. I do have a Patreon. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with it, but there is one if you want to support me. I also accept like lightning payments over Telegram and stuff. So I have a Telegram channel. I'm at Knut Svanholm there, and there's a Telegram channel for my stuff. There's my authors page on Amazon. You'll find my books there as well, most of them. I think that page links to the Finnish translations and everything as well.
Great.
So yeah, that's mainly it. And my DMs are open, so feel free to ask me anything. I'm trying to do these Twitter spaces every now and then. Anyone who wants to join those is very welcome. And I'll try to provide as much gibberish as I can.
Yeah, keep at it. And anybody, thank you for the listeners and watchers, and leave those likes and sign up, pressing the bell button if you want to be notified when we get more of these author casts out. We're going to do with all of our authors at some point. And if you like Knut's work, please do support him and buy his books. And if you want his books translated in your language, don't be shy. Send us a message, info@consensus.network, and we'll get right to it. Currently, we've grown quite a bit. Like 2019, we started with just one book, the Finnish Bitcoin Standard. Now we're working on, I think, more than 20 books across a dozen languages. So it's been a wild ride, and it's getting more and more crazy. So if you're into this, if you want to contribute, if you want to wield your time or wield your Bitcoin, get in contact, get in touch with us, and we'll keep rocking. Thank you, Knut. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. See you next time.
See you next time.